Welcome to Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. My name's Jake. I got a question for you. Are you a moral person? Might not be as easy to answer as you think. What kind of morality do you have? How advanced is your thinking? There was a behavioral psychologist named Lawrence Kohlberg who attempted to make a guide for answering this question. Bearing in mind it's one psychologist's opinion, but it is widely respected and studied because it is an excellent way to gauge your morality. Let's talk about a man named Heinz and a hypothetical question Kohlberg posed. Heinz has a spouse who is sick with a deadly disease. Spouse is, let's say, going to die in 2 days if they don't get a cure. Fortunately, he lives in a town where a chemist has made the cure for the disease. Great luck, Heinz. Heinz goes to the chemist, finds out the chemist is selling it at 2,000% of the cost it takes the chemist to manufacture it. Oh gosh, let's say it costs him $1 to manufacture it and he's selling it for $2,000. Heinz empties his bank account. It only had $250 in it, but then he goes to his friends. He manages to get together another $750. He's got $1,000. That's half the cost, but he can't get any more. Certainly not in 2 days, maybe a couple of weeks. He goes to the chemist with his $1,000 and he says, "Chemist, I can get you the rest of the money. I can give you this $1,000 now. I can get you the rest of the money. Might take me a little bit of time, but I'll get it to you. But I need this cure now because my wife will die. My spouse will die." Chemist says no. Tough. That's life. But I got bills to pay. I am not going to give you this cure because you have not given me enough money. Heinz, that night, breaks into the chemist's lab, steals the cure for his wife, spouse, whoever it is. The question is, was Heinz correct to break into the lab and steal the cure? If you're a curious mind, now's a great time to pause the video and genuinely answer the question for yourself. Was Heinz right to break into the lab and steal the cure, which will save his spouse, but is theft? Well, if you're just returning now, welcome back. Regardless, your answer will determine, let me try that again. The reasoning behind your answer will determine what level, 1 through 3, you would fall on Kohlberg's scale of moral thinking. Children tend to think along level 1 lines. Don't feel bad if you arrived at the same conclusion, but maybe engage in a little self-reflection. That's pre-conventional thinking. And that is thinking, or rather morality, based entirely on personal consequence. Will I get in trouble if I do X, Y, or Z? Young children will generally say something along the lines of, what Heinz did was wrong because he'll go to jail for it. That's their reasoning for why Heinz is in the wrong, because he will go to jail. There is negative consequence for what he did. So they're not so much thinking about right or wrong in terms of grand principle. They're simply thinking about what will cause a negative reaction. That's morality based on personal consequence. Level 2, that's morality based on societal expectations. Should we allow theft? Is the question asked, or is the answer is the question heard by people who are thinking in terms of conventional level 2 reasoning? It is notable that it is past their own benefit, and it's defined by overall societal values. So let's add in a hitch there. Let's say there are no security cameras, and Heinz will have some sort of a false alibi, so he won't get caught. It's known that he won't be caught. Yet, somebody who believes in level 2 conventional morality will still say it was wrong. Generally, they'll say this. It was wrong. Because we can't just have theft be accepted, even if you get away with it. If these are starting to sound like political parties to you, probably a reason for that. Level 3 is post-conventional. This is where somebody applies universal ethics to their reasoning. Universal ethics meaning what is good on an individual basis, and accepting that society may not have arrived at what the correct thing to do is. So where did you fall on that? What did you decide for Heinz? Because people at level 3 will often say Heinz was right to do what he did, because at the end of the day, it's a life versus somebody making money. And the person who is refusing to hand over the cure, even at a 1,000% markup, that person is being unreasonable, and you can't let somebody die just because somebody else is being unreasonable. I want to stress that there is not necessarily a correct answer, and you may arrive at any of these conclusions. Either it was right or it wasn't right, based on the reasoning from different levels. But it's still a good way to judge in broad strokes where you stand. I think this psychological experiment, this concept of different levels of morality, explains very well the behavior of the political parties currently, or rather the political forces currently in operation in the United States. If you're on the far right, their arguments tend to be based upon what individuals gain. You ever go on to Self-Aware Wolves or Leopards Ate My Face, and you just see these people who are baffled when something they supported heavily will come back to bite them. This is usually because they cannot conceive of principles. They'll be surprised, say when they try to ban, or they try to get their Christian club promoted in a school, so that there's an after-school Christian club, and then the same community says, well, we're allowed to have a Christian club, we're going to make a Satan club as well for the Satanists. And then they're out protesting. Darn it, What's going on? These Satanists are allowed to be in school, have a club in school pushing their beliefs on my kids, totally oblivious to the fact that they were trying to push their beliefs on other people's kids, because they're thinking only in terms of personal benefit or loss. They don't actually consider whether or not having a religious club in school is a good thing. They just simply want their religion promoted. Damn the rules. Most Democrats fall along the level 2 there, where they just sort of go along to get along. Also, your more reasonable right wingers, the never Trumpers, as they'd say, your Liz Cheneys, your Adam Kinzingers, they're firmly conventional morality types, because they are doing what they're doing and entirely based off of the expectations of society. So while they're not going to be the sort of people who say, storm the Capitol, or create a rule that could easily be interpreted to bite them in the butt, they're also the sort of people who in 1955 would have been fine with separate water fountains for whites and blacks and Jim Crow era nonsense. They would have been fine with that because at the time society was fine with it. Post-conventional thinkers are your Martin Luther Kings. By the way, he was a socialist in the 60s in America. Wrap your mind around that. Post-conventional thinkers apply universal ethical principles. Now, I try to be a post-conventional thinker. I think my default, embarrassingly, is pre-conventional. I think my default is to be like, well, what do I want? How can I get what I want? But knowing myself, I do generally check myself before I open my mouth and take another whack at it after giving it a think. I try to be post-conventional, and I encourage you to do the same. And let me tell you, because this is wicked, what you can do. Let me tell you how you can do that. A very simple trick. Go back to the Heinz problem for a moment and imagine you are everyone. You are Heinz. You are Heinz's spouse, who's going to die in 2 days if you don't get medicine. You are the chemist, wanting to make money based off his labor. It makes it easier to understand what is right and wrong in that situation. You imagine yourself as the chemist, even if you picked that it was okay for Heinz to steal the cure. Imagine yourself as the chemist. How angry would you be? How much would it affect your life that somebody stole from you? Might give you a sense that you're not safe in your own lab. Might make you invest in more locks. Might make you less trusting of people. Yeah, these are all consequences that the chemist is going to go through. Never mind the fact that they're down, in their estimation, $2,000. Imagine you're Heinz. What happens if you don't steal that? Personal consequence. Well, you don't go to jail, but your spouse dies. How much will it affect Heinz's life? Sorrow for the rest of it. An ache that never fully heals. It gets better over the years, but never totally goes away. Loneliness, sorrow, depression. That's what happens to Heinz. What happens if you're Heinz's spouse? You're dying. If your spouse, Heinz in this case, doesn't steal that cure, you don't see next week. You don't feel anything ever again. You're dead. If you're thinking in terms of post-conventional morality, you are applying generally universal ethics to situations. I encourage you to do that with everything you hear. Likely, you're going to have to think for a while, because it is not natural to most of us. Certainly, it's not natural to the majority of us, I would say, to do this. We think first, foremost, and solely about our perspective. But considering the perspective of others, that's where growth comes from. That's where wisdom comes from. That's where decency comes from. That is the very soul of being an ally, by the way. Considering how others feel and not letting them suffer needlessly. So, are you a moral person? Where did you fall? Were you level 1, pre-conventional, morality based on whether or not Hines gets arrested, or possibly whether or not Hines loses his wife or spouse, but not considering how the spouse feels about it, or not considering whether people generally should prefer life to profit? Level 2, conventional. Were you judging that based on what is expected already from society? Or were you level 3? Were you post-conventional? Whether you selected that it was moral for Hines to steal the medicine or not. Did you apply universal ethics to your thinking? Was it more about the principle? I'd love to hear your responses, but also what I'd really love is for you to consider this very situation when it comes to actual politics. Next time somebody's talking about universal health care with you, imagine you are the homeless person that cannot afford the treatment you need. Imagine that you don't have the benefits you do currently enjoy. Or if you don't have those benefits, it's going to be hard for you to be sympathetic, but try to imagine the guy trying to make some profit. What is best for all? What is best based upon your personal principles? If you don't have personal principles, it's a difficult phrase to say. If you yourself find that you don't really have personal principles, be thoughtful. Turn things over in your head. Decide how you really feel about them and why you feel that way. You may find that your opinions change. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a sign of a wise man or woman if you're able to change your opinions. Give it a thought. My name's Jake. Some thought is what I should have said. Give it some thought. Jake, you almost had it. See you next time.